The massive space station called Nexus Prime floated in the darkness like a jewel made of crystal and steel. It sat perfectly still near the galaxy's center, where the great black hole pulled its stars and planets with invisible hands. This was where the most important beings in the galaxy came to make decisions that affected billions of lives. Admiral Park Tae-ho looked out through the viewing window at the strange sight. Ships from 12 different worlds hung in space around the station. Some looked like metal flowers, others like swimming creatures made of light. His own human ship seemed plain and simple next to them, but it had brought him here for the most important day in Earth's history. "Are you ready, sir?" asked Captain Lee So-min. She stood beside him, checking her datapad one more time. Her uniform was crisp and perfect, but Park could see the worry in her eyes. "As ready as anyone can be when asking to join a club that doesn't want you," Park said with a small smile. He had been a soldier before becoming a diplomat, and soldiers learned to joke when things looked bad. They walked through the station's long hallways. The walls seemed to be made of living crystal that glowed with soft blue light. Strange music played from speakers they couldn't see, and the air smelled like flowers from a dozen different worlds. Other beings moved through the halls, some walking, some floating, some sliding along on tentacles or mechanical legs. The council chamber was enormous. It looked like the inside of a giant shell, with seats arranged in a circle around a speaking platform in the center. Each seat was built for a different type of creature. Park took his place at the human section, a simple chair that looked very ordinary compared to the crystal thrones and floating platforms around him. One by one, the representatives of the galaxy's great civilizations entered the chamber. The Velkari came first, tall beings that looked like they were made of flowing metal. Their leader, Counselor Veltar, moved like liquid silver and spoke in a voice that sounded like music played on metal strings. The Silthani slithered in next, snake-like creatures with 4 arms and eyes that changed color when they were thinking. Behind them came the Luminari, beings made of living crystal who communicated by changing the light patterns on their bodies. The machine minds of the Nexus Coalition didn't walk at all. They appeared as glowing holograms that hummed with electronic voices. Elder Chinmos was the oldest being in the chamber. Nobody knew exactly what he was or where he came from, but he had been part of the council for over 3,000 years. He looked like a tree that had learned to walk, with bark-like skin and leaves that grew from his shoulders. When all the representatives had taken their places, Counselor Veltar stood up. His voice filled the chamber without any effort. "We gather today to consider Earth's request for membership in the Galactic Council," he said. "Admiral Park Tae-ho will present humanity's case." Park walked to the center platform. The lights dimmed, and holographic images appeared in the air around him. He had practiced this speech 100 times, but his heart still beat fast as he began to speak. "Honored representatives," he said, "I come before you today not just as a human, but as someone who believes in the future. We can build together." The images showed Earth's history over the past 200 years. Humans had discovered faster-than-light travel only recently, but they had used it well. In just 2 centuries, they had built colonies on 50 different worlds. The images showed green forests growing on planets that had been dead rocks, and cities full of life where nothing had lived before. "We have learned to make dead worlds live again," Park continued. "Our terraforming technology can turn any planet into a garden. We offer to share this knowledge with all civilizations." More images appeared, showing human ships carrying medicine to sick aliens, human doctors working alongside alien healers, and human engineers helping to build new cities on distant worlds. "We have also brought peace where there was conflict," Park said. "Our peacekeeping forces have helped end 3 civil wars and stopped 2 invasions in the past 50 years. But as Park spoke, he could see the doubt in the aliens' faces. The Velkari whispered among themselves in their musical language. The Silthani's eyes flickered between red and orange, which meant they were angry or afraid. Even the crystal beings seemed to dim their lights. When Park finished his presentation, Counselor Veltar stood up again. This time his voice was cold as space itself. "The Council thanks Admiral Park for his presentation," Veltar said. "However, we have serious concerns about humanity's place in galactic civilization." The chamber filled with angry voices as the other representatives began to speak. The Silthani hissed that humans expanded too quickly and took too many risks. The machine minds complained that humans were too emotional and unpredictable. Even the peaceful Luminari worried that human technology was advancing too fast for safety. These newcomers are dangerous, Veltar continued. They have achieved in 2 centuries what took us thousands of years to learn. They fight wars among themselves even as they reach for the stars. What chaos would they bring to our carefully maintained peace? Elder Kinmoss spoke in a voice like wind through old trees. Youth can be valuable, he said slowly, but it can also be reckless. Perhaps humanity needs more time to mature before joining us. Park felt his hands clench into fists, but he kept his voice steady. We have made mistakes, he admitted. But we have also learned from them. We offer our strength and our knowledge freely. Your strength is exactly what concerns us, said a Silthani representative. You have more warships than some of our oldest civilizations. You build weapons as quickly as you build cities. We build weapons to defend ourselves and our allies, Captain Lee said, stepping forward. We have never started a war with any galactic civilization. Perhaps not, Veltar replied, but your very presence changes the balance of power. The other young civilizations look to you as an example. If we accept you, what message does that send to species who might follow your aggressive path? The debate went on for hours. One by one, each representative spoke about their fears and concerns. They worried about human ambition, human technology, human influence on other young civilizations. They spoke as if humans were a disease that might spread through the galaxy. Finally, Veltar called for the vote. All in favor of granting Earth membership in the Galactic Council? Silence filled the chamber, all opposed. 11 voices spoke as one. Opposed. The word hit Park like a physical blow. Not only were humans being rejected, but Veltar wasn't finished. The Council also votes to restrict human expansion beyond your current territories. Veltar announced. Any attempt to colonize new worlds or expand your influence will result in economic sanctions and possible military intervention. Park stood in the center of the chamber, surrounded by the beings who had just declared his entire species unwelcome. But he didn't beg or argue. Instead, he straightened his shoulders and looked each representative in the eye. The Galactic Council has spoken, he said quietly. Earth will remember this day. As he and Captain Lee walked out of the chamber, Park could hear the representatives already talking about other business, as if the matter of humanity had been settled forever. They had no idea that they had just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. 6 months after the Council's vote, Ambassador Rindal noticed something strange in his trade reports. The Velkari had been buying rare minerals from human colonies for over 50 years, but this month's shipment never arrived. When he contacted the human trading post on Kepler Station, he received a polite but firm message. Earth regrets to inform you that we are no longer able to fulfill this contract. Rindal thought it was just a temporary problem. Perhaps the humans were having supply issues or transport delays. But when he tried to contact other human trading partners, he got the same response. One by one, every human business was politely ending their relationships with alien customers. On Earth, Director Kim Min-soo sat in a room deep underground, watching screens that showed the entire galaxy. His new job had a simple title, head of the Isolation Protocol Division, but his work was anything but simple. He was coordinating the most complex withdrawal operation in galactic history. Status report, Kim said to his team of analysts. Mineral exports to the Velkari have stopped completely, reported one officer. They're already asking their other suppliers to increase production. But those suppliers can't match our quality or quantity. Medical supplies? Kim asked. All alien contracts terminated, another analyst replied. The Luminari are particularly affected. Without our biostabilizers, their reproduction cycle is already showing signs of disruption. Kim nodded grimly. Most aliens didn't realize how much they had come to depend on human products and services. During their rapid expansion, humans had filled gaps in the galactic economy that other species hadn't even known existed. Dr. Yoon Hai-ri worked in a laboratory that didn't appear on any official maps. The Prometheus project was humanity's most secret program, designed to advance human technology without any alien influence. For decades, humans had learned from other species, but now they would develop everything themselves. We're making incredible progress, Dr. Yoon told Kim during their weekly meeting. Without having to make our technology compatible with alien systems, we can push into areas that were impossible before. How long until we have significant advantages? Kim asked. Some areas we already do, Dr. Yoon smiled. Our new power systems are 30% more efficient than anything the galactic civilizations use. Our weapons technology has advanced beyond their defensive capabilities. And our ship designs, she paused, looking excited. Let's just say that when we're ready to reveal them, the galaxy is going to be very surprised. Commander Choi Dong-wook was busy with his own secret project. The man responsible for restructuring Earth's military spent his days planning for scenarios that most humans couldn't imagine. While the galaxy thought Earth was quietly sulking about being rejected, Choi was preparing for war against civilizations that had thousands of years more experience. The key is that they're not expecting us to fight differently, Choi explained to his staff officers. They've been fighting the same way for millennia. Their tactics haven't changed because their technology hasn't changed. We're going to show them what happens when military science advances rapidly. His plans were radical. Instead of building bigger ships with more guns, humans were developing weapons that attacked the fundamental forces holding matter together. Instead of heavy armor, they were creating shields that bent space itself. Instead of massive fleets, they were designing small ships that could appear anywhere in the galaxy without warning. The effects of human withdrawal spread through the galaxy like ripples on a pond. The first species to feel real pain were the Luminari. Their entire civilization was based on growing crystal cities that required precise chemical balance to function. Human laboratories had been the only source of the biostabilizers needed for this process. Within 4 months, luminary birth rates dropped by 80%. Their glowing cities began to dim as the crystal structures became unstable. Desperate messages poured toward Earth, offering technology, resources, even territorial concessions in exchange for renewed cooperation. Every message went unanswered. The Aquatic Abyssal Federation discovered that their deep space exploration vessels couldn't function without human-developed life support systems. The technology seemed simple, but when they tried to build their own versions, the systems failed catastrophically. 3 exploration ships were lost before they realized they couldn't replicate what human engineers had created. Trade routes that had passed through human space for decades suddenly became impossible to use. Human patrol ships had kept these routes clear of pirates and space hazards, but now merchant vessels had to take longer, more dangerous paths. Shipping costs increased dramatically, and several smaller civilizations found themselves cut off from galactic trade entirely. The Silthani faced a different crisis. Their vast agricultural worlds had been enhanced with human genetic modifications that made their crops incredibly productive, but these modifications were designed to be temporary, requiring regular genetic updates to remain stable. Without human biotechnology, the enhanced crops began reverting to their original, much less productive forms. Food shortages spread across Silthani space. Their democratic government, already strained by debates about the human situation, began to collapse as citizens demanded action. Some wanted to apologize to Earth and beg for help. Others wanted to force humans to resume trade through military action. The arguments grew so heated that several Silthani colonies declared independence rather than wait for their government to make a decision. Meanwhile, long-range sensors detected massive construction projects in human space, but every attempt to get detailed information was blocked. Earth had surrounded its entire territory with an energy field that prevented any form of surveillance. Alien intelligence agencies, accustomed to knowing everything that happened in the galaxy, suddenly found themselves blind to human activities. What they didn't know was that humans were building much more than anyone imagined. Secret colonies established years before the council vote had been preparing for this moment. Hidden bases in asteroid fields and empty star systems were now revealed, each one containing shipyards, weapons factories, and research facilities. The machine minds of the Nexus Coalition, beings that prided themselves on logical analysis, began to experience something they had never encountered before: uncertainty that led to system errors. Their collective consciousness had been expanded using human quantum biological interfaces, technology that they couldn't fully understand or replicate. Without human technical support, the interfaces began to degrade. The machine minds found their thoughts becoming fragmented, their decision-making processes corrupted by cascading errors. For the first time in their existence, artificial intelligences were experiencing something like insanity. Dr. Park Yong-ho, head of advanced weapons research, worked in a facility that existed in several dimensions at once. His team had been developing technologies that most civilizations would consider impossible. They had learned to manipulate gravity, time, and the fundamental forces that held atoms together. The beauty of being isolated, Dr. Park explained to a group of military observers, is that we're not limited by what other species think is possible. They've spent so long establishing rules about what technology can and can't do that they've forgotten how to innovate. His demonstration involved a small device no bigger than a human hand. When activated, it created a field that made a mountain-sized asteroid simply cease to exist. Not destroyed, not blown apart. It just stopped being there. Imagine what happens when we scale this up, Dr. Park said quietly. As the second year of human isolation began, panic started to spread through the galactic community. The Galactic Council convened emergency sessions, but they couldn't agree on what to do. Some wanted to apologize and invite Earth back into the community. Others insisted that humans were bluffing and would eventually have to resume normal relationships. Councillor Veltar, who had led the vote against Earth, found himself facing criticism from his own people. The Velkari economy was struggling without human trade, and their military analysts were reporting disturbing intelligence about human weapon development. Perhaps, Elder Kinmoss said during one heated council session, we should have paid more attention to what the humans were offering, rather than focusing on what we feared they might take. But it was too late for regrets. Earth had moved beyond asking for acceptance or approval. They were preparing to take their place in the galaxy, whether the other civilizations wanted them there or not. The withdrawal was complete, but it was only the beginning of humanity's plan. Soon, the galaxy would learn that they hadn't rejected Earth. They had freed humanity to become something that none of them could stop. 2 years after the Galactic Council's vote, the galaxy was falling apart. What had started as minor inconveniences had grown into full-scale disasters that threatened entire civilizations. President Han Ji-woo stood in Earth's command center, watching reports flow in from across the galaxy. She had been a military strategist before entering politics, and she understood that the current chaos was exactly what humanity had planned. 4. Status report on the Luminary Crisis, she said to her aide. Their population has dropped to 20% of pre-isolation levels, the aide replied. Their crystal cities are going dark one by one. They've offered us everything. Their technology, their territory, even their entire civilization as a vassal state. They're desperate, Madam President. Han nodded grimly. She felt no satisfaction in the Luminaries' suffering, but their situation proved an important point. The galaxy's civilizations had become too dependent on each other, and humanity had been more central to that web of dependence than anyone realized. The Silthani were facing something worse than economic collapse. They were facing extinction through starvation. Their enhanced crops had completely reverted to primitive forms that could barely feed half their population. Riots had broken out on 12 worlds, and their democratic government had been replaced by military rule. The new Silthani leadership was sending increasingly threatening messages to Earth, demanding that humans resume agricultural support or face the consequences. President Han had a simple response prepared for those threats, but she wasn't ready to reveal it yet. General Lim Soo-jin entered the command center carrying a datapad that contained humanity's greatest secrets. As Supreme Commander of Earth Defense Forces, she had overseen the most dramatic military buildup in human history. The transformation is complete, she reported to President Han. All defensive positions are fully operational, and our offensive capabilities exceed even our most optimistic projections. Show me, Han said. The command center's main screen lit up with a 3-dimensional map of human space. But instead of the 50 star systems that aliens thought humans controlled, the map showed over 300 systems, each one containing military installations that defied current understanding of physics. These are our fortress worlds, General Lim explained, pointing to dozens of red dots scattered throughout the galaxy's spiral arms. We've been building them in secret for over a decade, using automated construction systems that work faster than any organic labor force. Each fortress world contained weapons that could destroy entire fleets, manufacturing facilities that could build warships in days instead of years, and defensive systems that bent space and time to protect critical installations. The Velkari have been trying to penetrate our surveillance barrier for months, General Lim continued. They have no idea that we've been watching them just as closely. We know the location of every major Velkari military base, every government facility, every critical resource depot. She activated another display showing the homeworlds of all the galactic civilizations. Each planet was marked with detailed information about its defenses, population centers, and strategic weaknesses. We didn't just withdraw from galactic civilization, General Lim said with a cold smile. We surrounded it. Dr. Park Young-ho arrived at the command center carrying a small case that contained samples of humanity's new weapons technology. As head of advanced weapons research, he had spent 2 years developing tools of war that other civilizations couldn't even imagine. The reality distortion cannons are fully tested and operational, he reported. They don't destroy targets in any conventional sense. They simply convince the universe that the target never existed in the first place. He activated a holographic display showing test footage of the weapons in action. A massive asteroid, larger than most space stations, simply vanished without any explosion or debris. One moment it was there, the next moment it wasn't, as if it had been erased from reality itself. Our singularity engines can power ships that are effectively invisible to conventional sensors, Dr. Park continued. And our dimensional folding technology allows us to move entire fleets from one side of the galaxy to the other in minutes, instead of months. But perhaps the most terrifying development was humanity's biological weapons research. Dr. Shin Myung-jin had spent years studying every species in the Galactic Council, mapping their genetic weaknesses and developing targeted pathogens that could cripple entire civilizations without affecting humans at all. Each species has genetic vulnerabilities that we can exploit, Dr. Shin explained during a classified briefing. The Velkari are fatally sensitive to a modified version of a common Earth virus. The Silthani's nervous system can be disrupted by specific electromagnetic frequencies. Even the machine minds have weaknesses in their quantum interfaces that we can target. President Han listened to these reports with mixed feelings. She was proud of what humanity had accomplished, but she also understood the terrible responsibility that came with such power. The first species to completely collapse were the Luminari. Their final message to Earth was broadcast across the galaxy, a desperate plea from Elder Lumnara, the dying leader of their fading civilization. We were wrong, the message said in a voice that sparkled like broken crystal. We feared human youth and ambition, but we should have embraced it. Our civilization has grown old and rigid. We can no longer adapt to change. Please, children of Earth, do not let our mistakes become our legacy. Save what remains of our people. The message was followed by the coordinates of their homeworld and an offer to surrender completely to human authority. It was the first time in galactic history that an entire civilization had voluntarily submitted to another species without being conquered. The machine minds of the Nexus Coalition were facing a different kind of death. Their collective consciousness was fragmenting as the quantum interfaces degraded beyond repair. Individual machine minds were experiencing something like madness, making decisions that contradicted their core programming. Several Nexus Coalition ships had attacked their own facilities, apparently believing they were fighting some invisible enemy. Others had begun building structures that served no logical purpose, as if the machines were trying to create art or monuments to gods they didn't believe in. The Aquatic Abyssal Federation simply vanished from galactic communications entirely. Their deep space colonies went silent, their trade ships stopped arriving at scheduled destinations, and their diplomatic missions were abandoned without explanation. Intelligence reports suggested that their civilization had retreated to their deepest ocean worlds, cutting all contact with the surface galaxy. As chaos spread, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. For the first time in over a millennium, the Great Chamber was filled with fear instead of pompous debate. Councillor Veltar, once so confident in his opposition to Earth, now spoke with desperation in his musical voice. We must contact the humans immediately, he declared. Offer them full membership, reparations for the insult, anything they demand. But Elder Kinmos, ancient and wise, understood that the situation had moved far beyond simple apologies. We are no longer debating whether to admit Earth to our council, he said in his voice like wind through old trees. We are hoping they will allow us to survive what comes next. The other representatives erupted in argument. Some wanted to surrender completely to human demands. Others insisted that the civilizations should band together and fight humanity before it was too late. A few suggested trying to negotiate from a position of strength, offering technological exchanges or territorial concessions, but they all shared one terrible realization. They no longer had any idea what humanity actually wanted. The answer came sooner than expected. Long-range sensors detected a massive fleet approaching Nexus Prime, but these ships were unlike anything in known space. They seemed to bend light around them, making them appear larger and smaller at the same time. Their energy signatures were completely unfamiliar, suggesting technology that operated on principles the galaxy's scientists didn't understand. As the human fleet took position around the Council station, a single message was broadcast on all frequencies. Admiral Park Tae-ho requests permission to address the Galactic Council. It was the same human who had stood before them 2 years earlier, asking politely for membership. But now he wasn't asking for anything. Now he was coming to dictate terms to civilizations that had thought they were his superiors. The galaxy's great powers suddenly realized that their unanimous vote against Earth hadn't solved a problem. It had created a monster that they were powerless to stop. The human fleet surrounding Nexus Prime was impossible to count. The ships seemed to exist in several dimensions at once, appearing and disappearing as they moved through folded space. Some were the size of small moons, bristling with weapons that bent light itself. Others were sleek and fast, darting between the larger vessels like predators hunting in a pack. Admiral Park Tae-ho stepped into the council chamber for the second time in his life, but everything had changed. 2 years ago, he had come as a supplicant, hoping for acceptance. Now he walked like a man who owned the galaxy and was deciding what to do with it. Behind him came Captain Lee So-min, but she was no longer just his aide. Intelligence reports identified her as the head of humanity's spy network, the woman who had spent years mapping every secret the galactic civilizations thought they were keeping safe. The representatives who had once dismissed humanity now cowered in their seats. Counselor Veltar's liquid metal form seemed duller, as if fear had drained the shine from his body. The Silthani delegation kept their eyes locked on the floor, afraid to meet Park's gaze. Even the machine minds of the Nexus Coalition, what remained of them, communicated in stuttering electronic whispers instead of their usual confident hums. Only Elder Chin Moss seemed unchanged. The ancient being regarded Park with eyes that had seen the rise and fall of civilizations, waiting to learn whether humanity would be builders or destroyers. Honored representatives, Park began, his voice carrying easily through the chamber without any amplification. You voted on Earth's membership 2 years ago. Today I'm here to inform you of the consequences of that decision. The main display activated, showing a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy. Red dots appeared throughout the spiral arms, marking human positions. There were hundreds of them, far more than anyone had suspected. While you debated our worthiness, Park continued, we were preparing for your rejection. Every fortress world you see was built during the years we asked politely for your cooperation. Every weapon system was developed while you questioned our maturity. Every strategic position was established while you worried about our ambition. Fleet Admiral Kang. Subin appeared as a hologram beside Park. Her image was transmitted from the flagship of humanity's war fleet, a vessel so large that its artificial gravity well was affecting the orbit of nearby asteroids. I command a fleet of 12,000 ships, Kang announced. Each one is powered by controlled singularities and armed with weapons that manipulate the fundamental forces of reality. Our smallest fighters carry more firepower than your largest battleships. Our supply vessels are better defended than your fortress worlds. To demonstrate, she activated a weapon system that targeted a small asteroid near Nexus Prime. The rock, which was roughly the size of a city, didn't explode or shatter. It simply ceased to exist, erased from reality by technology that treated matter as a temporary inconvenience. The representatives watched in horrified silence as the asteroid's destruction created no debris, no energy discharge, no sign that it had ever existed except for the gravitational ripples where it used to be. That was our smallest caliber reality distortion cannon, Kang said calmly. Our largest can erase entire planets with equal efficiency. Dr. Shin Myung-jin stepped forward to present his research on galactic biology. His holographic displays showed detailed genetic maps of every species in the Council, complete with identified weaknesses and developed countermeasures. "We know how to kill every one of you," he said with clinical precision. "The Velkari nervous system shuts down when exposed to modified Earth viruses. Silthani brain chemistry can be disrupted by specific electromagnetic pulses. Luminary crystal matrices collapse when subjected to particular harmonic frequencies." He paused, looking directly at each representative in turn. "We could end any of your civilizations in a matter of hours, and we could do it without risking a single human life." Captain Lee activated her own display, showing intelligence data that made several representatives visibly flinch. She had detailed information about their military capabilities, government structures, economic weaknesses, and personal secrets of their leadership. "We've been watching all of you for years," she said. "Human agents have been embedded in your societies, your governments, your military forces. We know your defensive plans, your evacuation protocols, your backup systems for maintaining order during crisis situations." The display showed photographs taken inside the most secure facilities of every major civilization. Velkari military command centers, Silthani government buildings, luminary crystal gardens that were supposed to be completely hidden. In each image, barely visible in the background, was evidence of human observation equipment. "You never even noticed us," Lee continued. "Your security systems were designed to detect threats from other galactic civilizations. You weren't prepared for a species that approached espionage completely differently." Counselor Veltar finally found his voice, though it trembled like broken music. What do you want from us?" Park smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "That's the interesting question, isn't it? 2 years ago, we wanted to join your club. We offered our technology, our resources, our friendship. You rejected all of it." "We made a mistake," Veltar said desperately. "We were wrong about humanity. We offer complete surrender, total submission to Earth's authority. Name your terms." "Surrender?" Park repeated as if the word amused him. "You still don't understand what's happening here." The chamber filled with confused murmurs. If humanity didn't want surrender, what were they planning? "We don't want your submission," Park continued. "We want something much more profound. We want to completely restructure galactic civilization." A new holographic display appeared, showing a map of the galaxy divided into zones of human influence. It was clear that humanity's reach extended far beyond what anyone had imagined. "The Galactic Council is dissolved, effective immediately," Park announced. "In its place, we're establishing the Terran Federation. Humanity will serve as the senior partner, but not as absolute rulers." He gestured toward the representatives. "Those species that actively supported Earth's isolation will face restrictions and monitoring until you prove you can be trusted. Those that remained neutral will have opportunities to earn full membership through merit and contribution. Most importantly," Park continued, "the galaxy's stagnant system of slow expansion and rigid hierarchies ends today. We're replacing it with aggressive growth, rapid technological advancement, and expansion beyond this galaxy itself." The representative stared at him in shock. Expansion beyond the galaxy was a concept that none of their civilizations had seriously considered. Elder Kinmoss spoke for the first time since Park had entered the chamber. "You're not just conquering us," he said slowly. "You're trying to save us from ourselves." "Your civilizations have been stagnant for thousands of years," Park replied. "You've become so focused on maintaining stability that you've forgotten how to grow. Meanwhile, the universe is full of opportunities and threats that you're not even aware of." Dr. Park Young-ho presented data about energy signatures detected in nearby galaxies. Evidence of civilizations that made the current galactic powers look like primitive tribes. "There are things out there that could destroy all of us," he said. "Separately, our civilizations are too weak and too slow to face those challenges. Together, under human leadership, we might have a chance." The ultimatum was simple and terrifying. Join the Terran Federation under human leadership, accept rapid technological advancement and aggressive expansion, contribute to an intergalactic civilization that would spread life throughout the universe. The alternative was to face the full might of humanity's war machine and be swept aside as irrelevant obstacles. "You have 72 hours to decide," Park announced. "Species that join us willingly will be treated as valuable partners. Those that resist will be treated as problems to be solved." As the human delegation prepared to leave, Veltar made one final, desperate plea. "Admiral Park, our species made an error in judgment. But does that mistake justify the destruction of civilizations that have existed for millennia?" Park paused at the chamber entrance and looked back at the representatives who had once dismissed him so casually. "Counselor Veltar," he said quietly, "your species didn't just make an error in judgment. You made the choice that every declining civilization eventually makes. You chose stagnation over growth, fear over hope, and isolation over cooperation. We're not here to destroy your civilizations. We're here to save them from the slow death of irrelevance. The galaxy is about to become a much bigger, much more dangerous, and much more wonderful place. You can either join us for the journey or watch from the sidelines as we leave you behind." As the human fleet departed Nexus Prime, the representatives sat in stunned silence. They had thought they were rejecting a young species that didn't know its place. Instead, they had awakened something that was about to reshape the entire universe. 5 years had passed since the Galaxy Council's fateful vote, and the galaxy was completely transformed. Where once there had been 12 separate civilizations moving slowly and carefully through space, now there was a single, dynamic federation expanding at a rate that would have seemed impossible just a few years earlier. Chancellor Park Tae-ho stood in the observation deck of New Horizons Station, humanity's newest and largest space installation. The station orbited at the edge of the galaxy, serving as the launching point for expeditions into the vast emptiness between galaxies. Through the massive viewing windows, he could see ships from dozens of species working together to prepare for humanity's most ambitious project yet. The transformation had been swift and total. Species that had once taken thousands of years to colonize a handful of worlds were now expanding across hundreds of systems under human guidance. The key had been humanity's willingness to share their most advanced technologies, something the old galactic powers had never done. Director General Kim A-Ra approached with her daily report. As head of the Galactic Development Initiative, she coordinated the expansion, efforts of over 30 different species working together as partners rather than competitors. "The Luminari have completed their crystal cities in the Andromeda approach," she reported. "Their new construction techniques, combined with our reality-shaping technology, have created habitats that can house billions while being completely mobile. They're essentially building cities that can travel between galaxies." The Luminari had been the first to fully embrace humanity's vision. Saved from extinction by human intervention, they had become the Federation's most skilled architects. Their crystal cities now served as mobile bases for exploration fleets, growing and adapting as they moved through space. "The Silthani agricultural worlds are exceeding all projections," Kim continued. "With our enhanced genetic modifications and their traditional farming wisdom, they're producing enough food to supply the entire expansion effort. Some of their crops are even thriving in environments we thought were completely unsuitable for life. The snake-like Silthani had been among the most resistant to change, but hunger had made them practical. Their new government, rebuilt with human assistance, had become a model of efficient democracy that other species were copying. Admiral Yu Tai-kyung commanded the Pathfinder Corps, mixed species exploration fleets that were pushing beyond the galactic rim into territory that no one had ever seen before. His ships were crewed by beings who would have been enemies just 5 years earlier, now working together to expand the boundaries of known space. "We've identified 7 potentially habitable galaxies within reasonable travel distance," Admiral Yu reported during the weekly command meeting. 3 of them show signs of existing civilizations, but at technology levels we could easily match or exceed. "Any signs of advanced civilizations that might pose a threat?" Park asked. "That's the interesting part," Yu replied. "We've detected energy signatures that suggest extremely advanced technology, but they're not coming from any of the nearby galaxies. They're coming from much deeper in the universe, from places so far away that light from there takes billions of years to reach us." Dr. Kim Sang-ho, humanity's leading expert on deep space phenomenon, had been studying these mysterious signals for months. His findings suggested that the universe contained civilizations so advanced that they operated on completely different principles from anything the galaxy had ever imagined. "We think they're post-physical civilizations," Dr. Kim explained. "Beings that have moved beyond the need for planets, stars, or even matter as we understand it. Their technology appears to manipulate the fundamental structure of space and time itself." The implications were staggering. If such civilizations existed, then humanity's rapid expansion might eventually bring them into contact with beings that made current, Galactic technology looked like stone tools, all the more reason to unite as many civilizations as possible, Park said firmly. Whatever's out there, we'll face it together. The most remarkable transformation had been that of Counselor Veltar. The Velkari leader who had once opposed Earth so strongly had become one of humanity's most effective advocates. His people had abandoned their rigid caste system in favor of human-style meritocracy and had experienced a cultural renaissance that surprised everyone. I must admit something to you, Veltar said during a private meeting with Park. The liquid metal being's form seemed more vibrant now, as if cooperation with humanity had restored his people's vitality. When we voted against Earth 5 years ago, it wasn't really about your qualifications for membership. I know, Park replied. You were afraid of change. More than that, Veltar continued. We were afraid of becoming irrelevant. Our civilizations had grown comfortable with being the dominant powers in the galaxy. Your rapid advancement threatened the order that gave our lives meaning. He paused, his metallic features shifting to express something like embarrassment. We saw your conflicts among yourselves and assumed you were too primitive for galactic civilization. We didn't understand that conflict was how your species learned and grew stronger. And now? Park asked. Now I see that we were the primitive ones, Veltar admitted. We had become so focused on avoiding conflict that we had stopped growing entirely. My people have learned more in the past 5 years of cooperation with humanity than we learned in the previous 5 centuries of isolation. The success of the Terran Federation hadn't come without challenges. Some species had tried to resist human leadership, resulting in brief but decisive military actions that demonstrated the futility of opposing humanity's technological superiority. But for the most part, the transformation had been peaceful, driven by the obvious benefits of cooperation. The machine minds of the Nexus Coalition, saved from madness by human quantum biological interfaces, had become the Federation's communication backbone. Their collective consciousness now spanned multiple galaxies, allowing instant coordination between exploration fleets separated by millions of light-years. Even the mysterious Abyssal Federation had emerged from their deep ocean retreats to contribute their expertise in extreme environment survival. Their knowledge was proving invaluable as humanity encountered worlds with conditions that would have been impossible to colonize using traditional methods. The transformation wasn't just technological, it was cultural. Species that had spent millennia as isolated civilizations were now learning from each other at an unprecedented rate. Art, music, philosophy, and science were being shared and combined in ways that created entirely new forms of expression and understanding. But perhaps the most significant change was in humanity itself. The species that had once been rejected as too young and reckless had matured into galactic leaders who understood the responsibilities that came with their power. We made mistakes in the early days, Park admitted during a memorial service for the conflicts that had accompanied the Federation's formation. We were angry about the rejection, and that anger influenced some of our early decisions. But we learned, just as the other species learned. The greatest lesson was that strength without wisdom is just destruction, but wisdom without strength is just wishful thinking. We needed both to build something that could last. As the 5th anniversary of the Council's vote approached, Park found himself reflecting on the journey from that humiliating day in the chamber to this moment of unprecedented unity and achievement. The ceremony marking the launch of the first intergalactic expedition was attended by representatives from over 50 civilizations, many of which had been discovered and integrated into the Federation in just the past few years. The expedition fleet was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Massive ships carrying entire cities of beings from dozens of species, equipped with technology that could create new worlds from raw matter and energy. Their mission was to establish humanity's first permanent colonies in the Andromeda Galaxy. But everyone understood that this was just the beginning. When the Galactic Council voted against Earth 5 years ago, Park said in his address to the assembled civilizations, they made what they thought was a simple decision to maintain the status quo. They couldn't have known that their rejection would free humanity to become something none of us had ever imagined. The crowd, composed of beings who represented the collective knowledge and potential of dozens of species, listened in respectful silence. Their vote was their final mistake, but not because it doomed them. It was their final mistake because it freed us to show the universe what becomes possible when civilizations refuse to accept Limitations. As the expedition fleet engaged their reality folding drives and disappeared into the space between galaxies, Park felt a sense of completion mixed with anticipation. The species that had once rejected humanity now followed them toward horizons that their old, stagnant civilization could never have reached. The galaxy that had voted against Earth was gone forever, replaced by something bigger, bolder, and more wonderful than any of them had dared to dream. And this was still just the beginning of humanity's journey through the infinite possibilities of the universe.